Hey, good morning, everybody. You are now live, Facebook Live, not just Facebook Live, but also on YouTube on the Phil Carew Show. Welcome back, Gareth Riddy, also not just a martial arts, an author, but also known as the movement therapist as well. How you doing today, Gareth?
I'm very fucking well, dude. Very fucking well. Thanks for having me. By the way, side note, movement therapy. I don't really use movement therapist thing anymore. That was just something I've got on my old Facebook page, which just exists. So
That's fair enough.
Kind of, but not. Yeah, it's branch.
So
I do,
sorry?
I do it when people come to me for it, but it's
No, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. Well, like I said, welcome to the Phil Carew Show again. How has 2023 been for you so far? Because I know there's been a lot of changes and stuff like that. You know, you've been on and offline, and then you've been trying to sort of it's like a reconstruction, isn't it? Or sort of like flushing out all sort of other stuff, and then reconstructing everything together and bringing out some programs. Could you tell us a little bit about this new program that you've got for clients now?
So, what did I do? I bought out How to Unfight Your Brain, part 2.0. So that's out and online. It's not on sale at the moment. It's there. I'll do it every now and then, but it's all on the platform. So that is really geared at kind of taking the stress out of the brain and getting people to think a little bit clearer, kind of so they can get back in their brain. So they're not saying, do you know what I mean? It's
Of
like
course.
a series of neurological techniques and stuff that I've learned over the years to help people calm a nervous system is essentially what it is. So this year, what have I been doing? I've been digging in on my own shit like a motherfucker, just clearing old beliefs and unprocessed emotions and that type of stuff, which has been what I've really been interested in, the direction I've gone down in the healing world. The thing that I love is moving unprocessed emotions and how they affect behavior and beliefs and how much of our self really stacks on top of these emotions that haven't moved through the system like they should do. So that's kind of been a really big thing for me, is dismantling who I thought I was, and just constantly clearing and growing and evolving. And I've also turned it into, I say turned into, it's in the process of making it into a course where I can teach people how to do it themselves. They can clear their own unprocessed emotions. And then I'm going to do a couple of practitioner levels as well, so they can do what I do to teach other people. Because there's what I do, and then there's stuff that I've created and added on top of it.
Of course.
If I don't teach that, then it dies of me. Do you know what I mean? So that's kind of my focus, is that right now. So that's, it's been a really interesting year in terms of how shit's developed my work. I'm fucking mental. And I got my big black belt last week, so that's fucking big.
Yes, that's what I'd like to do. I've actually mentioning that you mentioned your black belt. Those in the martial arts world and non-martial arts, but if you're aware of Gareth himself, or if you're not aware of it, has now reached that level of his black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Congratulations! You know, it must be quite overwhelming and sort of surreal for you when you actually first encountered this experience, because I know when you have something like that, it's what's the best way to put it, how to actually sink in and absorb that. You know, that I think we mentioned even behind the camera, you know, off the show, you mentioned how it had to sink in a little bit, and more of an identity, sort of self-identity. How did that feel for you when you first sort of got handed it over and then awarded that?
It was a bit of an identity crisis. I mean, I knew it was coming, so
Yes.
that was good. But it was, even though I knew it was coming, when it did come, it's like, oh shit, now what? It's like there's this thing that you see,
Yes.
when you first start the journey of these people that are black belts, right?
Yes.
It's like they're fucking magicians. They know all this fucking crazy shit, and then I'm there like, what? Even though I've been on the mats for years, right? I've been grappling solidly now since 2009. Not always gi, but I've always been grappling for a long time. So I guess to a white belt, I would look like that. But to me, I'm like, oh, all I can see is more holes in my game. I mean,
Yes.
but it's really weird to be in that place all of a sudden. And even though it's only like a symbolic thing, here's a belt. It's not like all of a sudden my jiu-jitsu got better overnight. It hadn't at all. Do you know what I mean? It was like, da-da. But that little symbolic thing did impact me more than I expected it to. And also, you know, it just means the target on my back has got bigger as well. I can't just walk into another gym now.
Yeah.
Every single belt you get, the target on your back gets bigger. And when I first trained, like the following week with it, everybody started trying to kill me. And I was like, oh, I was expecting it to go easy, but no, it wasn't happening. So, yeah.
You know, I suppose that's what to be expected now, isn't it? You know, when you get to reach that level, they think, right, come on, we're gonna get to him.
Exactly.
It's like one of those martial art films. The moment you got to that level, you think, oh my goodness, what's happening here? You know? It's like coming at you quick and fast. Oh my goodness! If you had the opportunity, Gareth, now a lot of the times you do get a lot of these people where they get discovered and even noticed. Sometimes by accident and sometimes by association. Now, if you was in this position where a casting director had noticed you, because obviously you've got martial arts background as well as your therapy, if you had the given opportunity, like a John Wick film that's come out now, that's been advertised and been out with Keanu Reeves and all sort of the other sort of martial artists on there, would you participate and become one of the either a hero, anti-hero, or villain, or would you be a mysterious person and then to sort of surprise everyone with all these different martial arts added with your jiu-jitsu?
What, would I be an actor in a film?
Yes. If they gave you the opportunity and they said, you know what, Gareth, we see potential in your martial arts, and we'd like to offer you this part as a part of a cameo in one of our martial art films.
I don't know if I would do it.
No?
I don't know if I would do it. No. Purely because it would take away from what I'm doing now. And what I'm doing now is some fucking soul shit. I have to do it. Do you know what I mean? So
yeah.
Unless it would give me the opportunity to spread it out in a bigger way, maybe. But I would struggle to do something which isn't aligned with what I'm doing, what I love doing, and what I'm trying to do to the world. That being said, I would fucking love to be a villain.
You're a villain, yeah. It's different, isn't it? A lot of the takes where a lot of the time when people least expect it, you see these sort of people where unfortunately they may appear to look like as if they're being typecasted, you know, for being the hero all the time. And then you get other guys where when they do play the villain, they play it out quite well, being the villain as well, you know, because it takes quite a lot out of someone where they're actually playing a good villain as well as being the good guy. You know, that's quite good character sort of play in there and role, you know.
Best characters and villains, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? All the most memorable ones, like, you know, Darth Vader and
exactly.
All these huge villains, they're the best ones. Amazing.
Oh my goodness. Now, in regards to the questions, I'm looking forward to asking these actually.
Cool.
Have you tried any other kind of form of martial arts as well as your jiu-jitsu, you know, over time, you know, dabbled a little bit and sort of jumped in? What kind of arts have you
so as a kid, like I was always into martial arts more than other sports, but I was badly asthmatic as a kid, so I never really stuck to anything. I was a lazy little fat fucker as well. The one that I did the most as a kid was Lao Gar, a bit of Lao Gar Kung Fu.
Okay.
And then the instructor did a runner with the club money, so that was the end of that. And then did bits of kickboxing, dabbled with Wing Chun, did Japanese, I think it was like Mitsu Ryu Jiu-Jitsu before I really got into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and then MMA. And then, well, it was the grappling side of MMA that I loved. So that was what I got into and started doing that. And then I realised that there was no longevity in getting punched in the face. So I backed away from that side of things and just stuck to the rolling from about 2011, 2012, something like that.
Oh wow! So, what got you into sort of the martial arts? Was it the physical aspect, or was it the philosophy of it, or was it sort of integrated into one? Because I know a lot of the time, sometimes people misperceive martial arts as, you go to a club and then as you're going and you enjoy it, you got the physical part. It makes you, makes you fit. You get the sort of the togetherness as well, because like as you would do other sports, you get a lot of camaraderie, and the togetherness and that on there. That how people treat each other with the utmost high respect, even from just the instructors downwards, and the same from the students upwards. How would you say as martial arts has changed over time? Because I know you may have witnessed it yourself, not just with films, but even, over time as being from the student and even now become an actual black belt yourself.
What's the question?
And in how you would say how you've seen martial arts changed over time from from the past to like sort of current times.
So, well, it's changed a lot, hasn't it? Since the UFC, that has changed massively.
Yes.
When the UFC first popped up, 30 years ago now, and then it kind of changed the scope of martial arts in terms of what was functional in a combat setting and what had other benefits. So there's a lot of martial arts which don't really have a much function outside of its own arena, right? So that changed the whole thing a lot, I think, and it brought a lot of new interest in, and it brought a lot of new blood in, but it also brought in a lot of the fighters came in as well. But when you think about it, martial arts originally, it was originally combat art. That was the whole point of it back in the day. So it kind of brought a little bit more honesty to it, I think, But in terms of the martial arts spirit and all that stuff, I think that's still there in a lot of places, There are places that are more fight, and then there are the more martial arts side of it as well. But as a kid, because I was badly asthmatic and I couldn't play football with the boys, and I always got made to play with the girls in school. Right? So I never really gelled with the boys and playing with the boys. Didn't really gel playing with the girls either, to be fair, right? But the martial arts arena was the only place I ever felt that I had some kind of belonging.
Yeah.
Other people, because they're all a bunch of fucking geeks most of the time anyway, Myself I grew up on martial arts films back in the day, and it was the only place, probably still is the only place to this day that I feel at home, like I'm in the right place, is on the mat.
Yes.
Everywhere else I've been in life, no. On the mats, because there's an honesty and there's a truth to that environment which you don't get anywhere else, in my experience anyway.
Well, no, that's true. I've encountered that many a time, and I think it's great. Where it's like a common language that everyone has without even having to try. We're all in one place, and you don't realise that all at different levels, different sizes, different backgrounds, walks of life, and as soon as you leave that dojo, it's like a different world out there again, isn't it? Yeah. As soon as you leave the mat, that's it. When you're not rolling, and then even when you go back on and you meet other fellow martial artists, it's great, because the last time I encountered something like that, I was about, on my own, must have been about 14, 15, and it was it was like a group of people in my club, as well as meeting other people, fellow martial artists from all different clubs, different styles, different arts, and the stalls were amazing. When you have all these different martial arts stalls as you're growing up, you go there in events, so you see different things, because there were things going on from the 80s, 90s onwards to the noughts, where like from between the early 70s to 80s, where they got Karate Kid come out, and then now you got this Cobra Kai and all the different sort of martial arts now, even like the John Wicks and things like that, and they're all incorporated into films now. How would you say that, for the non-martial artists out there, and even other sort of, even as yourself as a martial artist, what is it like when you actually get into a position where, as being as a martial artist and a black belt now, You mentioned previously in the conversation that you became like a bigger target for everyone else. It's no hold bar now, isn't it? And that don't hold back. Just come at me. In that position. How would you say, sort of in that position yourself, you feel through your own eyes? When you're actually there and you're in a grapple. Is there some sort of something in your mind? When you first start thinking, right, how am I going to get out of this lock, or do I get at? Are you thinking of how to get out of it first, or are you thinking in that sort of thought process of where, what move am I going to put on them next? What's going through your mind, while you're on the mat rolling?
Depends what I'm rolling with, because I'm a coach as well.
Yes,
I have kind of a responsibility to a lot of the people that I roll with, right? So if they're like a lower grade, really, then a lot of my responsibility is to helping them.
Yes,
to seeing where they're going wrong. Do you know what I mean? I'm not going to get a lot from just trashing.
no, of course.
There's some people that I will, and there's some people that I won't. Yeah, and there's some people that I'll try stuff. Maybe I'll use them to try my own things, which I need to hone a little bit. And sometimes it just breaks off, and you're fucking getting it. Do you know
what I mean? Yeah. Wow.
I have the battle with, which tests me as well. So it really depends. But something I find with jiu-jitsu is there's certain things which are so ingrained in me, certain movements that my body does it before my head's even there, and I have to stop myself sometimes.
Wow.
Because there's certain things that if you get really good at something and you focus on it too much, you start closing your own game down.
Yes.
Like your A game. So I'll find myself there. I'm like, no, don't do that. Right, move on to something else.
Yeah.
So a lot of this kind of water play, you don't really do a lot of thinking. It's much more of a feeling process. I think, as you get more into it.
Oh wow, that's a different approach from it. I like that, Gareth. Because sometimes with a lot of sports and even anything that you try, even with as a martial arts, I think sometimes misperceived. It's always a thinking process, but I think sometimes it's more of the feeling of things as well. In combination. So like I think sometimes it becomes like autopilot, isn't it? Because you go through drills, motions, movements, techniques all the time, and then eventually there'll be like maybe something you may not realize that people might have noticed. You think, well, hang on a minute, there's an opening there. And then you'll go, oh, well, I didn't realise that, I could get that bit closer, I could clinch in, and get them a little bit closer to me. Because I remember there was one where I think when I first rolled for after how many years, because I took my oldest son to BJJ club nearest to where I am in Chelmsford, one of the Barara sort of Gracie academies, and I remember there was a guy. Tim, one of the instructors, a shout out to you, Tim, out there in Chelmsford, Pereira. So he managed to grab me. I remember I said, well, it's been a while, sort of go easy on me. He says, right, okay, once you get used to sort of the technique, so the collar. Now I remember when he pulling them towards you, even from the back, and even doing this to myself. And he said, now do that to yourself, and you'll be able to feel the pressure in it. And I thought, wow. I couldn't believe it. Even just a slight tweak of a movement makes a massive difference. Even pulling it towards you, and it changes the whole outlook of it. So even like when you're rolling yourself, and if you were in that situation in regards to even competing as well, that's one other point I'd like to make as well. Have you ever competed, or is it something that you teach in there, or is it something that you're not into? Isn't competing? You're more of like teaching and doing your sort of therapy.
Yeah, I have competed. I haven't competed for a long time, but I have done a few times. Yeah, I'm not really a fan of it, to be honest. I find for me, it takes up too much of my focus and too much of my, because I'm kind of a single-minded guy, right? So if I focus on competing, then that's all I'm going to focus on, and everything else kind of falls away, So I just focus on my work more than anything, and jiu-jitsu is just something I do because I love it and it's fun. I've been around a competitive scene for a while. A lot of like the MMA guys, kind of backstage, helping people.
Of course, yeah.
Actual competition, I find it takes up too much focus, and I don't really enjoy it that much. You know, I get like the huge adrenaline rush. I'm like, oh my god, panic! I'm gonna die. And then you settle down, and then you're in, and then you roll. You know, why the fuck did I do that? And then you talk yourself into doing it again, and then you get on the back of the mats, and then your adrenaline comes like, fuck, I hate this. It's that weird cycle of like doing it, that massive adrenaline dump, and then not competing again for ages, and then going, oh yeah, I can compete again, and then it happens again. Like shit.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
not.
No.
I'm not a fan of the massive adrenaline dumps. You know, they're not really my thing. I don't think I'm competitive minded like that. You know.
That's fair enough. You know, because I think a lot of the time, you know, we get to a stage where it's like, even myself, I don't know. I think maybe, you know, obviously I can't speak for other people, but for myself, it's I think it's one of those sort of quick fix for some people. You know, like that adrenaline thing that you mentioned. You know, because some people later on they realise, I thought, well, is it for me or is it not for me? And then you get to a position where you think, I need to be consistent to be able to feel that is it worthwhile to continue, or something else that you know that you can divert that energy into something else, like you said, because when you're doing other things, multiple things at the same time, you know, your focus is no longer with that area that you need to feel like you need to focus on. Like you said, you know, I think most of the time, I think that's where we forget as human beings, even, you know, when we're trying to do something too much. How would you say, as a therapist, in regards to that, how people feel that we what we need to do to sort of regain that kind of mentality? Because I think we as human beings, even I'll sort of hold self-confession to that, have tried and dabbled in that, where we've tried to do too much, you know, and then we realise that we end up getting like that form of burnout. What would you say, sort of in regards to, as you know, from the outside looking in, and even from yourself, you personally, you know, had that type of position where you've thought, right, look, I need some time out. I can't. It does physically and emotionally drain you. You know, what's your take on that, Gareth?
I mean, it depends on why you're doing it. You know, like people compete for different reasons, and if you're going to compete, you need to really compete a lot to get used to that adrenaline dump, so it becomes normal-ish, so you can handle it. Right, so it needs to happen a lot. But it really depends on why you're doing it and what you love doing and what you aim to get out of it. Right? So for me, I was never going to make a career out of it. Started late, really, you know, so it was always just going to be a little bit of fun just to test myself, which was great, but it did take focus away from my work, you know. If it's something that somebody really loves and they want to make a career out of it, then you've really got to focus on it 100% in any aspect of your life, whether it's on the mats, whether it's in your career, whatever it is, and you need to put your heart and soul into it.
Of course.
But you also need to put your heart and soul into your rest and recuperation time as well, which is what people tend not to do. Whether it be business, whether it be jiu-jitsu, whether it be in the gym, it doesn't matter. If you are not actively focusing on the brake as well as the accelerator, you're going to crash. You know, so it's accepting the yin and the yang, the balance of the whole, the thing to do for. That's how we all operate, you know. But we live in a world where we're like an accelerator, push, and it's kind of encouraged.
Yeah.
And everything crashes and burns, you know. Martial arts or no martial arts.
Yes, that's true. What would you say in regards to self-care? Because, like, in attachment to what we're relating to, what you've answered to my last question, because a lot of the time, we ourselves, as you know, I think it wasn't that long ago, a few years back, when it came out on news, where a lot of us, you know, even in regards to whether it's the private sector, public sector, whatever sector it is, you know, in the working class sort of industry and sort of areas of office work, even warehouse, you know, work, doesn't matter, anything that's physical or any form of work placement, nobody actually takes a proper break. I've noticed this, you know, when we say, "Oh, I need to eat while I'm doing this." I went, no, go out. Leave that. Have your whole hour to do whatever you need to do. Listen to music. Go to the gym for half an hour or an hour. Go and eat. put that aside, and then we're back again. What do you think that is? As what we need to change in terms of that? Just putting aside from the martial arts thing, but even as health-wise, as self-care, how important that you would say that it is for individuals, men, women, and even children out there, teenagers where they're off at half term now. It's good that having a bit of time out, they're not focusing on thinking, oh, do I need to do loads more stacks of homework? It's a lot of psychological sort of attachment to that, isn't it? Where a lot of people worry about what they should be doing, they think they should be doing rather than what they need to be doing, in terms of looking after themselves.
People do it the time when they go on holiday as well, don't they? Spend all the time thinking about work. But it's so fucking important. The long and short of it is we're all living lives that we're not made to live, is the long and short of it in the modern world, right? So we are all much more than we're designed to be. And that causes suffering. You can really put every modern illness, neurological disorder, all this stuff, you can really put under that one concept, is the fact that we are pushed much further than we're physiologically made to be. And we don't live in a world that supports our physiology as a natural human animal, right? So we kind of have to, I think, go out of our way to honor the fact that we are a human animal and we need to do these things to look after ourselves. Otherwise, we're going to end up not in a good place, which is really the essence of everything that I do as a healing man. And doing it is to really kind of take that shit down a notch, give people back to themselves. Otherwise you lose yourself, whether it comes out in your health, whether it comes out in your mental capacity, your behavior, or whatever it is. You keep on pushing, you're going to end up, fucking your life up in the long short of it.
Yeah, and sort of like a burnout, isn't it? Where you sort of over exceed your position, or where you think, come on, have a break, have a drink, have a coffee or a tea, have something to eat, oh, no, I've got to finish this.
Yeah.
Go and do that. Do what you need to do of what you're capable of doing, and do what you need to do, and then go off and have that break. Because I think initially it's become like a force of habit for some people where they can't undo, unlearn what they're doing. So that it's one of those sort of processes that they have to go through. Is this kind of a regular thing that some people have a struggle with on a daily basis, that most of the time, should I say, rephrase that, that you have to encounter with clients, Gareth, explaining to you, why is it I'm doing this? How do I do this? And how do I, so like you said, how to unfart your brain, from all this rubbish, that's in there, and just what they would say, take out the rubbish, and leave what's important, because you're always trying to focus on something that you shouldn't be worried about. We're always worrying about stuff that hasn't happened yet, or you think is going to happen, and rather than focusing on what's important.
Yeah, well, the more stressed people are, the more they're going to be like that. Because when you are stressed and your nervous system is ramped up, your thinking gets quicker. So the front part of your brain, where your executive functions are, that's the slow part of the brain. That's the working out stuff,
Yeah.
But in a threat, you lose access to that, because in a threat, you don't want to be thinking slowly. You want to be quick. You want to be reactive. So it all goes back into the faster parts of the brain for looking at threats, right? Which means that people can't slow themselves down. They're like, and they must do this, must do this, must do this, must do this. Or they're at home doing it in their own fucking head without actually doing anything. Do you know what I mean?
Wow.
So the more stressed you are, the more ramped up your brain is going to be. The more ramped up your brain is going to be, the less actual control you have over slowing yourself down. Which is the tricky side of it. Is getting somebody to slow down is hard. The more stressed they are, the more they need it, the harder it is to get them to fucking do it.
Oh wow. What do you think? Sort of the have you found it like a challenge sometimes? And do you like a challenge when they're when a client comes in and says, right, sort of puts it to you and says, well, look, Gareth, I've got this situation I'm in, and then how do I do this? How do I deal with it from this approach? Can I approach it in this way, or do I do this because this is how I'm feeling, or is it just my thought process? Do you go through different stages like a layers of an onion? You go from this is how I'm feeling, this is what I'm thinking, and even injuries. Because I remember you mentioned something about even people with like sort of a form of PTSD with not just an emotional attachment, even the sort of physical area. You know, if they've got any injuries, or even like a sense of taste, feeling, touch, there might be something that's a trigger. You know, where they're speaking to you, they might have hold back that. You know, you don't have to mention any names, obviously, but like examples of things where there could be like a trigger. You know, and you think, actually, yeah, you go through your notes and you'll go, well, actually, there is someone there where I've spoken to, and then within the moments of after I've unrevealed all those layers, I've stripped away all that stuff, and like you said, just threw all the rubbish and crap away, and thought, well, actually, if you're not aware of it, and you probably are now, this is what's happening, and then like all of a sudden realization has sort of come, and it's like an awakening for them, and you think, wow. You think that's all it was all along?
Well, it's not. I mean, it's kind of simple, but also it's not simple in the same respects, right? So the long and short of it is, the more ramped up we are, the less resources we have available for other things.
Yeah.
Whether it be for our digestion, whether it be our immune function, whether it be our brain function, so that can manifest itself in all sorts of ways from health outwards, right? My whole job is to really calm the nerve system down and get resources back to where they need to be, so the brain and body can communicate better and function better. That's the aim of the game, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of layers to that, why that can happen, from old traumas to lifestyle to stuff like that. But yeah, it comes out again and again and again, and you know, the aim of the game really is, how can I calm the fuck out of this nervous system? How can I get back into this person? Because every issue we have is down to essentially communication and resources. Are the resources getting where they need to go, and what's interfering with that, right? And that's on every level, from the subatomic up to the fucking universal. It's that same thing. If something's functioning, there's good communication, resources are getting where they need to go, energy flow. If it isn't, it's not. But the more ramped up people are, the more stressed they are, the less they can see that. And a stressed brain can't take on new things. It can only play patterns, right? So if I say to somebody who's ramped up to fuck, and I start trying to give them all these lifestyle tips and things to do that make them feel better, they won't be able to take it in because it's new. And a stressed brain can't take on new things. So my job is to do what I do neurologically and all that type of shit, to calm the nervous system down, so everything's resources back into the other parts of the brain. Then they can think, and then they can make different choices.
Oh, wow. You know, that's amazing, Gareth, because, like, you know, one of the great stories, if you folks and viewers and listeners out there, you know, if you're not on at the moment, because obviously it's half term, your family's in there, but this is a great show. I'm enjoying this, the answers I'm getting from Gareth here. It's great to have him back on the Phil Carew Show. Just sort of give everyone a summary on there. Gareth has actually sort of achieved a black belt level on there on the BJJ, on their sort of martial arts world, and also we're talking about sort of people's sort of situations of trauma and other bits and pieces of sort of in terms of his line of work of therapy. Now, with the therapy sort of part, I've noticed that you've helped so many people, like more than what I could even sort of imagine, and in a short period of time. Now, how do you manage to get sort of, is it through not just observation, but like other sort of experiences that you've had with yourself or other people that sort of linked in with similar things, you know, like even, for example, like phobias. Now, there's a great story that you had with, was it a lady or something like that, without having to sort of dabble with names or anything like that, but, you know, sort of with information where I think you mentioned something where she had a fear of something or a phobia. And then within that moment, you came back and she was like, oh my goodness, it was like as if you'd put a spell on her or something, you know, and da-dang, or something like that. And it was amazing.
Yeah. So what it was, well, as I was getting deeper into like the health stuff years ago, it came to light through the education that trauma, the way traumas behave in the body has a physiological effect, right? And I was like, oh, there's something in that. So I started really looking into that side of things and looking at traumas and unprocessed emotions and how they have an effect on our physiology and our behavior. And under every chronic illness, essentially. Under every phobia, under every trigger, behavior, belief is some kind of unprocessed emotion which hasn't moved. Okay, so when we have emotions, we should experience them, they move, and then we go on about our day. We learn whatever we need to from the situation, and then we live our lives. But because we live in a very different world than we're made for, when we have an emotional experience, we tend to dampen it down. And it gets stuck in the body. And if there's an emotion that hasn't moved, that then has an effect on how we think and how we feel. It becomes like a trigger, essentially. So what I did, I think the lady you're referring to was, it was actually in my local pub. Not that I drink, but I go in.
Wow.
Because they have halloumi, so I go in there. Anyway, so she just met some girl randomly, and there was like a funeral party, and we got chatting and said they're phobia snakes. I was like, "Oh, let me try something." I've got a snake. I've got Charlie, right? So I went home and got him, gave him to her sister out of the way, and then I did the process with her. But all I did was I just moved like the unprocessed fear out of her body, so the body could process it. Brought the snake back in, and then she loved him. She was like holding him and touching him. She was like, "Oh my god!" But because of that old unprocessed thing back when he was a kid was still there, that then fed up to her brain, because your psychology is a slave to your neurology, right? You think how you feel.
Yes.
So she then felt differently.
Wow. So how, in that aspect, does that work out the same? Because obviously it's sort of a similar process. I don't know, everyone's different, you know, how you would be able to have your approach on it. But, you know, you get a lot of people where they have no thought of their own. It could be like a past sort of experience, like you mentioned. Now, like, for example, arachnophobia, you know, with spiders, a similar thing. You know, have you had any encounter as well as snakes with that?
Yeah. Snakes, spiders, driving, heights. You know, it's the same process again and again. It can be any kind of trigger. It doesn't have to be a phobia, but the process is the same, because the theory behind it is the same. It's that there's an emotion underneath that your body is responding to, which hasn't moved. And once you neutralize the charge around that emotion, everything on top of it kind of falls away. You know, I've done it with people around. They have triggers. You can have triggers associated with anything: names, people, faces, words. There's all kinds of things. So the brain makes associations to stuff, right? We have some kind of highly charged emotional event, the brain will make an association to it, rightly or wrongly. You know, there may be a red shoe involved. Then whenever you see a red shoe, your brain gets triggered, right? So all I do is, when I'm working with people, if they're looking for that sort of thing, is just to neutralize the charge around that initial emotion, so they're no longer influenced by it. There's loads of stuff we have that happen. Yeah. So it could be like fear of doing something, or like a money block, for instance. Or something like that. There's all kinds of different. Underneath it, there's some unprocessed stuff. You neutralize that, it goes.
Oh, wow.
Is another one, right? I've had it with people before where they've been having a lot of relationship problems.
Yes.
And I've neutralized in them their emotional reactions to stuff that they've been holding on to for years about their partner, and then all of a sudden their relationship changed. Because they were reacting.
That's amazing. Yeah.
It allows you to become present within the thing, as opposed to reacting on old stuff. And most time when we have an emotional reaction, we're not actually reacting to the thing. We're reacting to the old stuff, influencing how we see the thing now.
Wow. So it's like a suppressed thing that we haven't let go of. And then once you've let go of that, you know, it changes the whole outlook in their life, you know, because they've been holding it for so long. Yeah. So, yeah. Wow. Exactly. Goodness me. Yeah. You know, it's when I know for some people, obviously, if they haven't been onto the Phil Carew channel, on the Phil Carew Show, on my channel, when you're on the previous episode that you were last on, you know, just to sort of reiterate, and even sort of in short, to let everyone else out, the listeners and audience out there, how did you come about becoming the actual movement therapist? You know, because there are a lot of times when people go in and go, "Oh, well, I like the look of that," but there is a sort of emotional, sort of also a self experience attached to that, for the reason of why you got involved in that, wasn't there? in the actual movement therapy. Yes.
I was born. That helped. My whole life history was I was a very unhealthy kid, in and out of hospital, a lot of asthma attacks, all that type of shit. So I'd had like a real long history of poor health and had cancer when I was 24, drug addiction, blah blah. Anyway, point is, I was really well versed in feeling shit. And what it came from was I was a personal trainer, so I became a personal trainer at some point. Because I fell in love with the gym, and that was when I first kind of realised I had a bit of control over myself because I got fit. I was, oh fucking hell, I'm not this fucked up kid. Anyway,
of course.
So I started learning stuff over the years. I was always more interested in the performance side of it than the aesthetic side of it, because I felt shit for so long, and I could not feel shit. Do you know what I mean? So that was always my thing. How do I get people to feel better and function better? So I started learning this stuff. To help people out of pain in the gym was basically it. And as I kind of got deeper into that, I was kind of down the hole, looking at how people function, and it kind of went from there, really. And that was kind of it, And I just ran with that. And initially, we were looking at the mechanical issues, and kind of went more into chronic health issues. Accidentally helped somebody cure from terminal cancer. Accidentally turned into on purpose, but started off accidentally. And just kind of ran with it and clear my own shit on the way,
Wow. How does it feel, being able to feel like you've undone something there? Do you feel like it's like a form of superpower or a gift that you've been given, to even going through the motions of being, a cancer survivor and going through, even seeing someone go through something through it, and even being able to, because every single feeling and facet of that actual moment, when you've been diagnosed with it and then been told, and then coming out of it, and then being able to see someone else come out of it through helping them, your own experience must be quite overwhelming, for you to. How long did that process for you to realize? You think, hold on a moment, I haven't just helped myself, I've also helped someone else, and healing them in that and their journey as well.
It was interesting because the way that it happened, so like obviously I've got my own history with cancer as well, is my mum died of cancer, and she left me like some of the money from her house, which then went into my education, learning the stuff that I learned, and that kind of led me down this path. And I think a lot of it came from the fact that I'd at the time felt that I failed her, so that kind of motivated me a little bit more. And then I met Mariella, who had the cancer, and I was just trying to help her out of pain online. And she got better. And through her, so there's always kind of been a big turning point. That's kind of, it's been a big theme for my life. And from there, it kind of came full circle, because she had 3 to 6 months to live, and she's still alive now. Like, what was that? 6-7 years ago now, something like that. So it kind of came full circle, and seeing her, how the changes that she made in herself, her personality, and that type of stuff, and seeing what was possible in a human being kind of changed everything for me, really, But it wasn't. There have been moments where I've been caught up in the ego of it. Of course, there has. I'm a human being, but most of the time I manage not to. There's also been times that I also neglect it as well. That I don't even look back at it. I'm like, oh, yeah, whatever, cool. There's like this huge long list of people that I've helped.
Yes,
wonderful thing, And sometimes I don't really stop and appreciate that, if I'm honest. But also, when there's people that I haven't been able to help, beating myself up a fucking hell of a lot for it in the same respect.
Yes.
So I had to learn to let go of as well.
Wow. Yeah. No. Do you feel that sometimes when you get to this position where you've not just helped people, do you feel that it can actually take a lot? People may not even notice it, but can it be quite draining? All that energy that you're pushing out to be able to sort of heal, not just the psychological part, but the emotional attachment to it and everything else. As one. Because you're obviously your own health as well. Because you put a lot of energy to be able to go through the process and the motion with them. Because it's not just that obviously they're living it through the life changes, but you're also. You're beside them. You're going through every single part of their journey along the way. It must be quite draining.
Yeah, it can be, and I have had a burnout like that before. Yeah, absolutely, and it's one of the big reasons that I do what I do now in the direction that I've taken it. Was that I was really struggling with a lot of the health stuff. You know, I was getting really kind of heavy in the health stuff, and some heavy stuff with people that were really suffering, and it didn't always work out the way that I wanted it to. But also, I was trying to help everybody, so I was giving myself away essentially from an energetic perspective and a psychological perspective. And then I worked with a lady who came to me, and she had terminal cancer, and she'd heard of what I did before. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this because it's a lot of pressure, you know. The first one was kind of an accident, and we ran with it. And but anyway, we kind of chatted and we did it. And I worked for her, and it didn't work. She ended up dying. So, and it was just like put a lot of effort and energy into it, and I couldn't find it. The more stressed I got about it, the less I can see. Do you know what I mean? The less open I am. But I remember the last conversation that we had, and she said to me, you're not here for me, Gareth, I'm here for you. And this is like an extremely so in line woman, she was so fucking wise. And she says, yeah, I'm here for you. I'm here to help you remind people who they are. I was like, do you know what I mean? And like,
wow.
As soon as I cried, like everything. And a lot of it all kind of came to head that the whole point of everything that I can do is to bring people back to themselves.
Yes.
Remind them who they are. So I got really, that kind of drove me down the more, it's now become much more of a tool for spiritual development, for a tool of enlightenment, if you want to call it that, in terms of people finding the truth of who they are. That's kind of my thing. Kind of moved away from the health, although it's still the same stuff, it's just layers. You know, and that kind of really pushed me in this direction.
Oh, wow. How would you say, because I've never asked this, but like what your approach and a sort of take on this, because on the flip side, there's obviously two sides of a coin here, where you get the sufferers and also the people that are doing their best to support, because obviously sometimes, you know, they're not obviously the ones that are trying to support. They're not always the ones having to endure what they're going through, and it's no fault of their own. That it's not that they don't understand. It's that there must be some kind of way, you know, the approach and support network to be able to help those who are also supporting as well. Because obviously you've got two types of support. You've got ones that are supporting the sufferers, and the sufferers, you know, trying to sort of be able to get the right type of support network so they can continue with their treatment or their changes through their process of life. You know, being able to sort of either get better, or they've either been diagnosed and been told, right, okay, you're getting better by doing this, or they've had some news, or they might have it might sort of reoccurred. You know, like because I mentioned to Tracy Franklin, one of the sort of breast cancer survivors, on one of my last episodes. In Canada, and also other members of the public in there that may have listened and watched in the States as well. You mentioned to me that I know it's also good to know that there's a good support network for those sufferers as well, because, you know, the sufferers, you know, as well as that, you know, they need that good sort of strength and sort of someone has your back all the time, which is good. But what is it like, you know, how people from the support network that needs the help as well? Because obviously they're thinking, right, how do I keep this going? You know, because it's not easy, you know, even as a former carer myself, you know, and sort of life support worker practitioner myself, you know, in the past, not just for mental health, but also people that sort of ended life sort of term there, where, you know, you have a plan in action, where it must be hard for those also, you know, the ones that are knowing that they have that form of relationship or relation to the person they're looking after, or in a relationship as in like a family member. You know, it must be quite difficult. You know, what's the support network in there?
Yeah, well, we need them, don't we? We absolutely fucking need them. A lot of people that are in the caring world, however you want to do that, say that, don't look after themselves enough. You know, and I met a lady actually at a business event a couple of weeks ago who's putting together a thing to help carers care for care. Do you know what I mean? So she works around care homes and that type of stuff, which is an amazing fucking idea because people really drain the shit out of themselves, you know. And it's even people that do it professionally. There's people that are kind of thrust into the care world that they have to, whether it's family members or whatever. And then there's people like me who do it as a job. You know, we were in the helping industry as a job. People like me, usually talking about myself as an example. Thankfully, I realised it and dealt with it. A lot of people that work within those kind of industries are doing it based on trauma. You know, they're doing it based on their own shit that they're trying not to face, their own guilt or whatever it is in them, which drives them forward. And unfortunately, it often leads to burnout or really poor quality of life and their own problems. And I was really, when I first realised that, I was like, oh, for fuck's sake. And it was great because I can clear that shit. So I cleared all this stuff out from me. Yeah. Which meant I could then become better for other people. Because the more you're doing it from the wrong place, the more stress that puts on you, which means that the less ability you are to do with the other person. You become very outcome dependent as opposed to what's going on right now.
Yeah. So no, I'm really happy with those answers, Gareth, because it must be hard, you know, even from even as yourself, you know, because as well as the person that's suffering, you know, and you're the person you're trying to help. It's also equally as important as the person that's trying to help, you know, to be able to not have that initial burnout because, you know, like they always say, you're no good to anyone, you know, if you're not looking after yourself either, because you need to be fresh and sharp and strong for the person that you're supporting, you know, that's when they're needing the most. Exactly. You know, also, have you got a book or any other programs apart from what you've got now, you know, foreseeable future for different things, you know, because I know, you know, in the, not just in the personal development, but the sort of coaching and the therapist sort of area, do you think that now, you know, within this sort of type of sector that you're in, people are starting to realize and sort of open their eyes that there is more out there to what, you know, what type of thing that you're doing? Because I think sometimes it's very closed. Not many people, as we are as human beings, we like to share certain things, but this is why I put the show together, you know, like I explained before, Gareth, you know, to reach out to the areas that are not always reached, because it's just a shame that sometimes people, you hear about it, but not a lot of people are aware of it. You know, there could be someone that will refer you, and it's good to hear, you know, the old-fashioned word of mouth, you know, as well as advertising, because it's a shame sometimes people are lacking these type of treatment, you know, and therapy. You know, it's always either, oh, do you know anyone, you know, NHS, or do this or do that, and then you think, well, yeah, there is something, but it's not always the same. You know, maybe have something different. And then when you refer to someone, they'll say, oh, I didn't hear about this. How did you? And then it's because of through word of mouth and referral again. You know, how would they sort of get in touch with you? Are you not just Google? Is there any other sort of information that I can sort of forward to people?
Get on fucking Facebook. Find me on the internet. How to Undo the Shit Model does to us on Amazon and Audible. Yeah, and I'm in the process, for we said tonight, of putting together a course to help people release their own triggers and trapped emotions. Process now. I've got level 1 sorted, or structured, framed, I should say, and I've got 2 more levels of that coming as well, where people can learn how to do what I do.
Wow,
that's my goal. That's my drive at the moment, is to put that into the world so people can start undoing their own shit and clearing their own fucking bullshit, which is driving their, so people can really get ownership of themselves again, which is what we really want, because this world is designed to take it away from us and profit off that fucking shit. So that's my fucking goal in life.
Right, okay, Gareth, I'm going to leave you to it in the next few moments. There's just one quick question, last question I'd like to ask you. If you were to be given powers as apart from what you've got now, how would you go about using your powers now if you was to be given them right now? You know, in regards to helping other people with your type of profession as like a superpower.
Do I have to choose a power?
You can have whatever you want, as many as you want, and who you want to help, and wherever.
That's a good fucking question, mate. It's a good question. So, what I'm drawn to, how I see a lot of the problems with the world, is the fact that people are so distracted from themselves that they're in a poor health, poor psychological health, physical health, all that type of stuff. And everybody's kind of manipulated into buying into stuff which they shouldn't really be buying into, because it's the system that we live in. It feeds itself. Right? So I would love, and a big part of my work is finding a way of people who can really connect to the truth of who they are and let their souls do what their soul wants to do.
Wow.
Whatever powers I would need to do that, I don't know. But the way I see it is, we are all here to do one thing, and that is to make our souls sing. And until we do that, we will be very unhealthy and unhappy.
Oh, actually, just to make sure, what was the last type of music that you last listened to? Actually, yeah.
Last type of music, I was listening to some Viking type music. Actually, on the way to the gym. In the gym, it was dirty drum and bass, and I was listening to some kind of, like the series Vikings, like that kind of thing, which I've been listening to. Which I kind of, I don't know why, last couple of days, listen to that kind of choiry, chanty type thing.
Yeah, no, I don't know why, but I heard something similar to that. There's like a Viking thing that's been going on recently. You know, with all these different things that's been going on. You know, with I think there's some recent things with Vikings and what is it, like Game of Thrones kind of thing. You know, going around. You know, and you know, it's like a choir, isn't it? You know, where as if people are singing while they're rowing boats and everything like that, and the Vikings, and they're wow,
yeah, I love that.
Something about it that's quite harmonious in it and together, you know, and very uplifting.
Reverbs in your throat, in your chest, love it.
Oh, you know, it's always been a pleasure, Gareth. You know what? I'd love to have you on again for other things, you know, in regards to other than just martial arts and your therapy thing, because you know I've always been a fan of your work, and it'd be great to hear some updates of like some things that you've been doing and how you've been getting on with your actual development of your program, because sounds pretty exciting actually, because you mentioned, you know, you've got the level 1, 2, and you've got the other bits and pieces that are coming together now. How is there sort of a particular kind of not just process but levels? How many levels, you know, are there at the moment? How many do you think there will actually be? Have you got a plan there overall of how many?
There'll be 3. There'll be 1 which will be help people do it themselves, and then 2 deeper ones where they can do it as a practitioner and get into the nitty gritty a little bit more. Yeah, and then maybe I can't work out if I'm going to do them in like workshops or retreats or how it's going to happen, but it's going to happen. Maybe it'll be online. I don't know. One way or another, it will happen, and it'll be out in the world, flying free, and it will do what it does. Who knows what it'll do? Better than we fucking good, are we?
Punk arse love, Gareth, as you would say.
And it's called the Big Punk Ass Method, BPM.
That's it. No, it's always been a pleasure, Gareth. You know, we should have a coffee off the camera at some point. Well, I'm sure we'll probably have to sort of chat on a few more other things there and other experiences that other people have had. I've always enjoyed our chats, and even now you've even got your Facebook Live on there on our StreamYard. So I look forward to having more chats and even possibly in the near future with you, Gareth. Thank you very much for coming on the Phil Carew Show 2.0.
Where I am. Thanks for having me. It's been an absolute fucking honour, but I'm hungry, so I'm going. of my life.
Right, he's going to love us and leave us now, folks. Take care, Gareth. Don't forget to
See you
subscribe.
later.
Take care. Bye for now.